the Relentless Transitions podcast. I am Teresa from the US, your host, and my global partner, Miss Rosalind Keith, is here with us today. How are you feeling, Miss Rosalind?
I'm feeling great, Teresa. I say this, I think, pretty much every podcast that it's always fun to work with you. So it makes my day.
Bringing that positive energy in,
Yeah,
and we always record in the mornings. Have you noticed that?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that might kind of help with, help with things as well. But
yeah.
guys, we are so glad that you are here. And if you are here for the very, very first time, in this podcast, we like to talk about life, we talk about business, and we talk about, how to achieve triumph in both. We are both on a journey, but we like to share. We like to think we know a thing or two, and we like to share those things with you as we are on our journey. And today we have a really, really great topic. I mean, here we are. It's getting close to the end of the year. So in the future, if you're watching this replay and it's March, sorry, but it's getting towards the end of the year, and change is in the air. When it approaches the end of the year and getting ready to go into the new year, there are a lot of changes that we go through, or at least that we think about, right, Rosalind?
Sure, sure.
So,
Well, and haven't we been through an awful lot of change in the last 2 years, right?
oh, yes. And yes, we are definitely in a time of just constant evolving change. I think I've gotten to the point now where I just don't even want to watch the news, because I don't want to hear about that next thing or that thing that is already
Exactly.
going on that I now need to adjust to. But today what we're going to talk about is we are going to talk about the 8 reasons that we fear change. I mean, change causes a lot of anxiety and stress in the best of us. Even for people who like change, I used to say that I love change, because from my history as a clinician, I worked in ICU, so that's intensive care for those of you who don't know. So it's constantly changing. There's always something going on, some new trauma, some new event. And I worked in an inner city hospital, so my patients were gunshots, stabs, motor vehicle rollovers. I mean, it was always some trauma. So every day that I went to work, it was like, what's going to happen? So I used to say that I just love change, but I don't know. Now it's kind of like, could it slow down just a little bit? But even in that, it does cause some type of stress. And sometimes, if we can't get control of it, it causes fear. So today we're going to talk about reasons that we actually fear change, and hopefully we will be able to provide you with some tips on how to handle it. So let's just jump right on into it, Miss Rosalind.
Yeah, everything you said there is it's just right spot on. Change is risky. It can be very, very risky. If you're thinking of making a big change in your life, it can scare the bejeebers out of you. And your brain, your lizard brain, clicks in where it's a defense mechanism. It wants you to look for anything corrective that you can do to stop that risky behavior. It's trying to protect you, and it's trying to regain control over the situation. And it just wants you to do anything to reduce the stress that you're creating by considering this change, by living with the idea that you're going to change. And I mean, this can be something as simple as applying for a new job. Your brain just goes, whoa, this is freaking me out. And you might back off because that is such a strong signal coming from your brain. So you jump back to your comfort zone, right? You just live in your comfort zone because you don't get that kind of freaked out nature going on. But your brain's just trying to protect you.
Mm-hmm. That's actually what I was going to say, that the brain is defense, but then it's also protection, is that our brains try to protect us. It knows the current. It knows the now or the past experience. It knows that, but it doesn't know what this new thing is going to be. And so, it tries to protect us, tries to keep us exactly where we are, even if we know that the next thing is a good thing. And you talked about that job application, and I'm sure that we're gonna mention something a little bit later. But you go to fill out that job application, and your brain, that your brain is trying to stop you, because it will come up with 15 reasons why you can't fill out that job application. It's too long.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's too hard to understand. They're asking too many questions. Oh God, I don't want to fill this, repeat this information all over again. So those types of things. But yeah, the brain is trying to protect us. So it's trying to just keep us exactly where we are. It doesn't know what that future thing is, but it knows what this is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And I mean, this is like we're hardwired for this. I mean, it goes back to prehistoric times when we had to protect ourselves from anything that was unusual in our environment, right? So,
Hmm.
and unusual things are uncertain. And uncertainty is really stressful to your brain. And your brain actually would prefer more predictable, negative outcomes, even that, because it's predictable, right? It looks for the predictable situation. And your brain would rather face those predictable negative outcomes, and then face the uncertainty that the unknown causes, right?
Right.
And so no matter how much pain knowing the truth about the next step could cause, your brain actually prefers that certainty than to not know. So if you're in a situation where you're trying to make a decision about what your next move is, your brain is looking for information to regain its equilibrium and to regain some sort of sense of security and certainty in your life. And that's what it's doing. It's just trying to protect you, even if the stuff is going to be bad. It rather know that, because then it knows what the next step is going to be, right?
Yeah.
Helps you figure out what the next step is going to be.
Right. And this can apply like to anything, things that can be uncertain, or things like, hey, I'm going to go back to college, maybe, establish a new career, or develop a new stream of income for my business, or starting a new business, or adding a new service or program to your business. That uncertainty can produce some fear. And I'm going to even talk about, I was thinking about one that is very relevant today. All of this is relevant but very real, is businesses closing.
Yeah.
So perhaps that branch of that bank that you used to go to, that branch closes, and just the thought of having to find a new location, that's been real for me. Or a grocery store that I used to, go to, has now closed. And now I need to find a new grocery store to go to, or even if it's the same store, but it's in another location, and the way that they put the groceries in the store is different. Have you ever,
Yeah.
you get in there, you're like, oh, so, it's sometimes it's hard to embrace those changes. So we really like the certainty of going to the same places, doing the same things. Our brains really do appreciate that. But
Yeah.
change can be good. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And those rumors that you start hearing about the grocery store leaving your community or whatever, those are what creates that anxiety.
Mhm.
And even when you find out that, yeah, it's going to leave, your brain settles down a little bit, because
Mhm.
now it knows, move on. like
Right,
like
exactly.
stop,
Because there's nothing you
stop.
can do about that bank closing or
Exactly.
that store closing.
Yeah,
No.
exactly. And and part of that, and this, we'll use this over and over again, I think, as we're talking about the fear of change or reasons we fear change. Not knowing is really scary, you know, and change is all about moving into that unknown space, and that fear that the fear that creates, that scary feeling creates, um it actually can cause you to think irrationally. It can cause you to behave irrationally. You end up, you can um, almost see yourself staying in an unhappy and unhealthy situation just because the unknown is so much more scarier than the unhappiness you're experiencing in this current situation. So it's a weird thing, but you rather stay, again, it's that comfort zone, right?
Hmm. And it's a comfort. It's an uncomfortable comfort zone,
Yeah.
right? And there's this story that I heard once about this dog, and how this dog is on the porch, and every time he turns a certain way, the dog kind of yelps out, right? And then he calms down, and then he turns a certain way, he yelps out again. And somebody's like, "What is wrong with that dog?" And the owner says, "Well, he's sitting on a nail." And they're like, "Okay, well, why doesn't the dog just get up and move?" And he's like, "Because he's not having, enough pain yet. So he just kind of stays there." So it's like an uncomfortable comfort. But then, in real life for us, it can be staying in a bad relationship.
Yeah.
You know that it is time to move on, but you just stay there for whatever reason: fear of being alone, fear of, you're not going to have the security of whatever it is, underneath the discomfort of being there. Or maybe staying in the job a little bit too long that you really don't like, that you're working with people that you don't like, or maybe it's taking up, too much of your time, or those types of things. And we just stay there because it's
Yeah.
uncomfortable and it's a negative situation, but we know that situation. We don't know what the next situation might be.
Yeah, there's certainly comfort in certainty, and there's certainly comfort in knowing where you're at. And
Hmm.
when you don't know where you're at, that's when the real scary stuff kicks in.
Yeah.
So yeah, and a part of this uncertainty that change creates is scary, right? And moving into something unknown can be scary. Like going into that deep dark cave when you're out hiking or something. It's kind of fascinating, but you don't know what's at the end of that cave, and your brain starts saying, "Okay, hold on there. What are you doing, idiot?" And when you're thinking of any change in your life, you're moving into the unknown, and so the unknown being that scary dark place, it's going to cause you fear, and fear, we all know fear causes unclear and irrational thinking, and it causes unclear and irrational behavior. You do things that, you know, somewhere in your gut, you should be um, not doing them, but um, you do them anyway because they're not scary. They're known. They're not some big dark cave. So you end up staying potentially in an unhealthy or an unhappy situation just because the devil is better than the devil you don't, right?
Right. Yes, definitely.
So yeah, and these are um, yeah, this could be leaving a relationship.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah,
Bad relationships,
yeah,
jobs, friendships,
yeah,
that we're involved in, or just places that we really just shouldn't be. And I use as a thermometer, is this serving me well?
Yeah.
So, if it's not serving you well, then it just may very well mean that it's time to move on. But, making changes, it, you know, even when you know that it's time to move on, sometimes we just stay who we, oh, it's not so bad. But, in order for you to live your best life, change is just kind of a part of it, which takes us into thinking about, when we have negative situations, and we know that it's time to move on, or we believe that it's time to move on, we develop these fears, but some of it has to do with, um, not necessarily being comfortable, but that we have just a fear of loss,
Yeah. Yeah.
a fear of losing, even, and it seems crazy, right? Because you're saying this is a bad situation. I hate this job. I hate coming over here. This relationship is no longer working, or, for whatever the reasons are, from, just simple, it's not working, or it could be abusive. It could be a whole bunch of things. It's not working, but there's still some fear of loss because, I guess, as they say, nothing is 100% bad, right? But it's just not good for you anymore.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
It's, it's
we fear that a loss.
Yeah, yeah, especially when you have an emotional investment in the situation, right?
Hmm.
Um, and you don't want to lose all that time and effort you've put into that, growing that your reputation in that job, or making your relationship work. And your brain just tells you that loss is too great,
Hmm.
so stay where you are, you know and logic then goes out the window, because your brain is saying to you, this loss is too much. Why were you even considering this?
Right.
We've invested all this time and money. We've invested, our emotions. We've invested so much in this situation. Why would you ever consider letting it go after all the work you've done there? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. But one of my favorite songs, it talks about losing, and it says sometimes you have to lose to win again.
yeah.
Sometimes you have to just let it all go. Sometimes it
That's right.
requires losing everything. Sometimes it can be just a few things or a small amount, but sometimes you have to let go of absolutely everything in order to win. But what I found in those instances is that when I started winning, what I gained was way more than what I lost.
Yeah,
At the time, because we can only see what's immediately in front of us. Sometimes it just seems like it would just be complete and utter devastation. But what I try to stress to my clients is that it doesn't really last forever.
yeah,
Sometimes when we make changes, we think that that change is like forever, like it's forever, like gonna be something horrible.
yeah,
But no, when you gain, sometimes it can be way more than everything, like all of those years combined, of effort that you put into that other thing. When you gain, it can actually end up being more than that.
yeah. What's that saying? Short-term pain for long-term
Earned
gain,
gain,
right?
yes,
Yeah, yeah.
yes.
So, another reason we fear change is that your brain wants a steady as she goes life. She just wants you to have an easy, steady as you go life. And I'm referring to your brain as she, but I suppose if you're a guy, you're probably referring to your brain as he. I don't know. And change challenges all the information you've stored in your brain about what your life is supposed to be, and about how you're supposed to behave. And your it change challenges, and it could be inconsistent with these deep core beliefs that you've developed. And these beliefs come from your history, they come from your upbringing, they come from just living the way you've been living for an extended period of time. And change challenges all of that. It just challenges it all, and your brain says, "Wait a second, we've got a good thing going here. Why are you challenging it?" Step back, lady. So yeah,
Yeah. And examples of this can be things like moving into a new home. I always like to use myself, for an example, because I'm telling you, my old home, I absolutely loved that home. I mean, I loved it when we purchased it. And by the time we moved, oh my goodness, I left kicking and screaming. My husband was like, it's time for us to move. We had always wanted, a larger home, but we had done a lot of renovations to the home we were living in, and I felt like we had just got it like exactly like we wanted it in every area, and I was not about to move. So I moved kicking and screaming, but then now that I'm in this home, I probably move kicking and screaming out of this one. Like I think, oh, well, this one, is beautiful too. So moving into a new home or relocating to a new city. When we moved to Georgia, it produced so many more opportunities than what we had where we were living. But I kind of wanted to move but stay. Were exactly where I was. So, it can really just go into any area, or adding new partners to your business, or partnering with someone else in another business, or it could just really involve anything, just accepting new opportunities for yourself. Our brain wants us to just stay there, like, well, what's wrong with this?
yeah,
I'll
exactly.
tell you something funny. I told my husband, I said, well, when we get to 25 years of marriage, I think that we should have another wedding and say our vows over again. And my husband was like, what was wrong with the first one? Which, of course, and he was so serious. I just burst out laughing. If he wasn't so serious, I probably would have been mad. But he was like, what was wrong with those other ones?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But for your brain, you're starting something new and fresh, and that's exciting too, right? It you can that those vows, while they're a repeat of 25 years ago, it's like you're starting on new ground. So there's one way that you can make steady as she go lifestyle a little more exciting without
Mhm.
making a huge change. But
Right.
in a lot of cases, you need to make that change in order to move forward with life. And yeah, I mean, for me, this was all about, should I stay or should I go in my marriage? And there was a huge part of me that just said, well, it's been a long marriage. It's been a good relationship. There's been a lot of really positive things. Look at the life you've lived because of it. Why would you let that go? And well, because at this point, the change is more appealing than the unhappiness. So that goes back to the previous. Well, actually, they're all so related, these reasons why we fear change. I mean, and it all comes down to, you know, the the defense mechanisms and the comfort zone um, safety, right? So, another reason why we fear change is that, we still, no matter how much we tell ourselves, you don't need the approval of your peers, your family, etc. We are often just afraid of what other people are going to think of us. They're going to judge us for the decisions we're making. They're going to judge you for quitting your job and going out on your own. They're going to judge you, you know, and that's again your brain kicking in to tell you things that, are they really true? You know, so yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I just say, when it comes to seeking the approval of others, of course, I think that that is definitely human nature. However, approving of yourself is really the most important thing. If you are pleased with yourself, with your life, with your actions, then what I find is that when you create your best you, you become your best self, then everybody around you recognizes that. And then, they can't help but be happy for you if these are people who are truly, vested in you and your happiness. So, yes, they might have some fears themselves. It's not necessarily a disapproval of you or what this new thing is that you're going to try. But I believe that people actually are thinking about their own response, and
Yeah.
how they would feel if they were trying this new thing, and then they are putting their fears onto you. So you go on ahead and try that new thing and find your happiness. And I think that when you present your best version of yourself, everybody's going to be happy for you. They can't help but to applaud that.
Yeah, yeah. It just brought to mind. I live in a city where most of my friends from high school like never left. They went away for university. They came back. They settled, and I I left. I left, and not only did I leave the city, but I left the country.
Mhm.
And when I talked to these friends, when I first went out on this global nomaded lifestyle, they looked at me like I had three heads, you
Like,
know?
you are crazy.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So I mean that was a situation where um, my sense of adventure overruled my sense of judgment, from the people around me. And sometimes you just got to do that. You've got to put yourself and what's going to make you happy first, right?
Right.
And what other people think, can be important, um, but don't let it keep you in a place that you're unhappy, and don't let it de- make you deny yourself something that you really, really want.
Yes,
So yeah,
definitely.
yeah. So
Yes. Yes,
yeah.
and and we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier. As you are trying to embrace change or thinking about change, our brain might actually start telling us stories.
Exactly.
Start telling us all of these reasons, as I mentioned about that application, about how it can't be done, why it shouldn't be done, and OMG, and, and kind of putting up the little roadblocks, in front of us. But what I say to do about that is to confront it. That's my word. I haven't found another word that works better for me, is really to call those thoughts out, to write them down. Sometimes speak them out loud. My husband, he says, there you go, you're talking to yourself again. Sometimes I do it so much I don't even notice it. But you know what, there's a book out there that is really, really good. And well, we're not promoting anyone's thing on this podcast. However, I read this book that's called What You Say When You Talk to Yourself. And
Mm.
that book is like excellent. And it gave me permission to talk out loud. So so that's why I'll blame it on that book. But I call those things out. I'll actually say
Yeah,
the things out loud, and then I'll ask the question, like, who told you that? Like,
exactly.
where did you get that from? And oftentimes we'll see that we just got it out of our own minds, that no one has told us that we can't do the thing or shouldn't do the thing or whatever the case may be. It's us, our own mind, our brain trying to, like you said, whoa, girl.
Yeah. 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 I mean, and it's surprising how often we listen to those stories that our
Mhm.
brain weaves, and they I'm sure everybody's experienced this, where you're thinking about doing something, and instead of thinking about the joy it could bring you, the happiness it could bring you, the positive change it could bring into your life, instead you're going to focus on the scary consequences. And are you going to make that move if that's all you're focusing on? Not a chance, right? So confronting those thoughts, exactly. Like, tell that, and we've done a podcast on stinking thinking. Tell that stinking thinking to hop into the sewer where it belongs, right?
Mhm.
So
I say drop, kick it, punt it, and kick it to the
Yeah,
curb.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and some of that, um, that s- things that keeps us from making the change, um, with the stories that your brain they're telling you it's a mistake, and for some reason you're making this mistake by applying to this job. You're not going to be good enough, you're not going to be smart enough for the job, um, and your brain is just, again, it's just trying to keep you where it thinks you're going to reduce your stress levels if you don't make that change, because making mistakes, like, that makes everybody feel kind of lousy. If you're making a mistake and your brain says, well, this could be a big mistake. So you wonder, yeah, you just wonder, am I making the right decision? This is going to be a big failure, whatever. So yeah, I think that, um, the whole fear of making a mistake thing can really, really make you not take those changes that could end up being the most positive thing in your life, right? Because you don't want to make that mistake. So I know that you can do, um, envision. One way to get around that is to envision yourself being successful at the change you're making, right? To sit down and make a mind movie type situation of yourself being successful, um, and um, and think about the obstacles you may come up against when you're making that change, and plan for that.
Yeah,
um, that can help you get over your fear of failure, because
definitely.
you're going in there prepared, right?
Yeah,
So yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, I'm thinking that the two biggest ones, I guess for each person it can be different, but I'm thinking that that fear of disapproval of others,
yeah,
from others, and also thinking that you might be making a mistake, or that fear of failure.
yeah,
Certainly, those two can, out of all of these, I think can really, really stop us just dead in our tracks.
yeah,
But there are some ways, and you kind of touched on it. What I typically do and recommend, if you're thinking, you're worried about failing, before you even start your journey, think about like what it is, why are you making this change? Like, what are you hoping to accomplish by making this change? And then think about, that journey to the change. Like right from the beginning, think about what are your obstacles going to be. I mean, we know our current circumstances, so we know what people are in our circle that are going to come and, not meaning to, but say something or do something to throw us off of our game. Or, what other obstacles, what are maybe financial obligation, obstacles, or whatever the case may be. We know what those things are. So I recommend setting your goals and then thinking about three obstacles, like identify three obstacles before you get started. And then this is really where the breakthrough comes through. Consider three ways that you can overcome each obstacle. Because oftentimes what our mind will do is think about what we're trying to change, and then immediately it'll come up with the obstacles, right?
yeah. That's
But
right.
take it a step further and come up with not one, that's why I say not two, but three different ways that you can overcome each obstacle. That will really help to give you some empowerment to actually go ahead and make this change. And you already have an idea of, okay, if this happens, this is what I'm going to do. If this happens, okay, I'm going to do. If that doesn't work, I have this as my, plan B. Okay, if this doesn't work, then I have this next thing.
Yeah,
So that really can help you to, go ahead and make your change and get past your fear of failure.
yeah. it
Um,
it creates that sense of certainty that your brain wants, right?
yes,
Because you have a certain path now that it knows it can go down safely.
absolutely.
So yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. So
yeah,
I think that this has really been awesome, and
yeah.
just to, go ahead.
I think the bottom line here is that, we all fear changes to
Hmm.
some extent. And it's perfectly natural. And it really is, a lot of it comes from your brain's role is to keep you safe, right?
Right. Hmm.
And
Right. Right.
yeah, yeah.
So
So
our 8 reasons, our top 8 that we have identified that we fear change. I'm going to just recap them very quickly. One is that change is risky. Two, that uncertainty is more stressful than predictable negative outcomes. Three, the unknown is just scary. Four, our brain hates loss. Five, our brain wants a steady as she goes lifestyle. I like that. And six, we're so afraid of what others will think. We're just afraid to try. Seven, your brain may tell you stories. They're lies. They're lies. I'm just telling you from they're just all lies. And eight, we equate change with mistakes. So I hope that we have given you some tips on how to overcome these things. And we just are thankful that you are here with us on this journey. These are things that we have all experienced. We both experienced, and we continue to experience them. And these are some of the tactics that we use to actually overcome them. So our takeaway for today is that you are your best asset. You are your best asset. Any change that may increase your joy and allow you to live your absolute best life is worth the change. So embrace the change and find your happy. Thank you so much for being here with us today. If you enjoyed these tips, we would love it if you would go to our YouTube channel, Relentless Transitions, send us questions, comments, like, and subscribe, and definitely share this episode with your friends and listen to it again. If you weren't able to, if you were driving and you weren't able to write things down, it's definitely worth listening to it again. So thank you so much for being on this journey with us. We appreciate you and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of the Relentless Transitions.
thanks for listening, everyone.